Hello guys, it's Sam Go. So in this video, I'll continue from where I stopped in the previous video by starting out building out the states of the app using reactive variables. So just to remind you guys, reactive variables actually makes state handling using Apollo client easy. To continue, I'll have to make use of create react app command to build out a react app. So let me run this. Create react app. Okay, so this process will take a little bit of time, so I have to pause this video here. Alright, the process has ended, so I'd have to make use of the reactive variables directory. Okay. So let's start the server first, just to make sure that it's working. Okay, I'll start. Alright, it's running well. There's just some dependencies that we will be needing in this tutorial, so I'd have to get them installed. So here I'm going to install Apollo client, MDB, React for the UI, and GraphQL. Okay, so the process took quite some time to complete. So next I would start by creating the reducer file. So in this file, okay, let me create it first. So in this file, I'm going to import the makevar function from Apollo. Import makevar. Yeah. Alright, so next I'm going to create a variable to-dos, and I'll instantiate it by calling the makevar function. Then I'm going to write in an empty array as the current state of our to-do. So our state is the to-do, so the current state is this empty array. So I'll just do this. Okay, I'm missing something. Const. Okay, so in this file I'm going to define a reducer. So the basic work of the reducer in this file would be to define how the to-do state would be written, how the state would be manipulated. So let me do that. Function, I'll call the function dispatch. Then the dispatch will accept an object. Next, I'll make use of the switch statement to define various conditions of what would happen, and to make use of the action.type. Inside the action object, there will be a type property that would use to control the conditional flow of the switch statement. So the first one is add to do. Okay, so in add to do, if the type that is passed into this dispatch function, the type of the action is add to do, I want to return the to-dos. Then I have to pass in the previous value of the state, because the way this to do states using the reactive variable works is that anything you're writing isn't appended. You have to rewrite the state using the previous one. Then if there's a new property or object you want to insert, you also need to add it, append it. So the previous one, I'll just make a call to it, to do's. Then I'll now have to append the new one, action.todo. Okay. The next case to look at is update. When a to-do is gonna be updated to do. Okay, so first of all I have to use the structuring to get some required values from the actions object. Okay, I'll get the text and the ID from the action.todo. Okay, next I'll create a new variable called new state. Then I'll have to log this state and map the properties. Okay, so before I continue, I'd like to show you what the action object would look like. Let me just create something. JS. Okay, so this type of function calls that will be made to the dispatch function. All you need to pass in an object, an action object, and to have a type. So let's say this object was created to add a to do to the state. So this one is add to do. Then it would have a to do property as well. Under the to do, inside this to do property would have an ID. So basically I'll be making use of the date function, date.now method, just create a random ID using time. Then the next one is the text, that is the value of the to do. Let me just say this one is feeding, and the last one is completed. This will define if the to do has been completed or not. So the default value is false. So this is the type of object that will be passing into the dispatch function. So what happens is that, okay, the other ones too, for instance, let's say I want to delete a to do, or let me see, I want to update a to do. Okay, so the way it works, I have to pass in the ID of the to do that's already in the state. Let's say this one is just 34533. I can make an update. So anytime I make a call to this function would update the state and also update the to do, the particular to do that is referencing using the ID. So this is the type of object we pass in. The other actions that will also be made, like the delete to do and complete to do. Okay, so let's continue. All right, so so I'm mapping through the current state. Then I'll have to set a condition to see when the state actually, when the current to do matches the ID that was passed from the action property, so sorry, from the action object. So I'll do this. So if I.id is equals to the structured ID, what do I need to do? I want to return, so I'll just make use of the spread operator here, action.todo, then I'll rewrite what the new text says. Okay, then I'll set a different condition for situations where it doesn't match. I'll just return the object itself. So the next case that I'll be looking at is complete to do. Okay, so I also make use of the structure in here to get the current complete value equals to action.todo. But then I would want to take the opposite, because that's what I'll use to rewrite the state of that to do. So let's say I pass in an object that has a completed value of false. So once it gets here, what happens is that this complete variable will be instantiated with true, because this is just saying the opposite, So next, I also like to destructure the ID, because that's what I'll use to identify the states I want to update the complete value. Action.todo. Next, I have to create a new state. Then I'll print the state and map it out again. Okay, so next I'll have to make a condition. If I.id is equals to the structured ID, what will I do? I'll return an object. I'll spread the current state of the to do. And okay, this should be completed. Sorry, completed. That's what I used here. Yeah, completed. Okay. Then I also have to return the value if it didn't match. Okay, I guess it's complete. Yeah. So the next case that I'll be looking into is, okay, I'm not done with this. Okay, even here I wasn't even done here, because after doing all these things I would have to return the new state. I have to write it in this to do's reactive variable. So I'll spread it new state. Then that is also the same thing I'll be doing here too. I'd have to return the to do's new state. Okay, so the final condition, the final case, or should I say action type we have to consider is when you're trying to delete a to do. Okay, so as usual, I'll destructure the ID from the to do's, from the action. Action.todo. Next, I'll create a new state. So in this one, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to make use of the filter, to filter out, to return all other arrays in which the ID doesn't match. But it's just a way of which is an easier way. Instead of using something like slice, I can just use filter. So okay, I want to return I when is not equals to the ID. Okay, next I'll return to do's. I would have to return the new state. Okay. So let's test out this and know if it will work. So I have to open my browser now. Let me open my developers tools, since that is where I'll be writing the test. Sources. Okay, already created. Okay, let me just create a new snippet. Okay, it won't work because for this to work I have to make this available in the console. So what I have to do is to export this. I want to export this function and attach it to the Windows object. Export default dispatch. Then I import it here, my index.js file. Okay. So here I'll just do window.dispatch equals to dispatch. Okay, I have an auto importer, so in line 6 here it automatically detected the location of this function. So import dispatch from reducer file. So let me open my browser again and run some commands. So first of all, let's try out the add to do dispatch the object. Type. I don't know why this isn't behaving like that. Dispatch. Okay, it's working well now. So type, let the type be add to do, then the next one the to do object. The ID dates.now, just create random IDs in time. Then the text, let's say code, and completed. The default is false. So let me run it to see what to return. So you can see here it returned this ID completed. So currently what I have in my state now is just a single object. So if I try to run this again, let me use a different text, movies. You see it returned here 2 objects. So my state has 2 objects and the object comprises of the ID. So this value was generated using time date.now, then the text and completed. By default is false. Okay, so that is how it works. Quite easy. So next, okay, let's try out other actions and see if it work. So let me try out update. So just look at this now. The to do it's an index of 1. The current text is movie. So let's just copy this ID so that we can update it. Where is it? Oh, okay. This is the ID. I've copied it, so I'm going to paste it here. So I want to change movies to cooking, and this should be update to do. Update to do. So let me clear my console so that you see what to return. Change. So you see now, the second one, the text is now cooking. So this is how it works for both the delete, the add to do, and the update to do, even completed. Okay, let's test out the completed to do to see. Okay, complete to do. Let me clear my console and run it again. Completed undefined. Okay, it looks like I have to check out the error because this should be true now. Okay, let me check my VS Code. Okay, seems like I didn't attach something here. A default case. Okay, so I'll just return to do's here. To do's, okay. Let me try it out again just to be sure. So currently my state is empty because it's not stored to any local storage. It doesn't have a permanent storage, but we'll get into that too. So after some debugging, I saw my mistake. So this is wrong because there's no, I can't get the opposite of that from just doing this. So rather I'll just make it plain and do this. So this gives me the opposite of the action, of the completed action. So let me try it out. I would have to take it back. So let me start with code. The next one, movies, and it's okay. So let me try to change this to completed. Complete to do. Let me clean my console and run it. Let's see. Okay, it worked. So the way the UI will be structured is that anytime a change is made to a to-do and this completed property changes to true, there will be a strike will be given to the text. Okay, so the next thing we are going to do here is to make use of local storage so that in subsequent reload you would still persist your states. Okay, so okay, so the way it will work here is that first of all I would have to check, because anytime the app loads I have to check if there's a current state, if there's any data in local storage. Then if there's a data, I'll make use of that data and write into the reactive variables of to-dos. So let me write my condition here. So if local storage dot get item to-dos, if it's true, I want to write that into my to-dos reactive variable. So JSON dot stringify. To write into your local storage, to write an object, you have to use the JSON dot stringify, so that anytime you want to make use of it, you can use JSON.parse and convert it into an object. Okay. Okay, sorry. Since I'm trying to get the data, I would have to use JSON.parse. So JSON.parse local storage dot get item. Let it be to do's. So I'll store my to do's as a to do's variable, as a to do's key in my local storage. Okay. Okay, next, so for each action that we carry out in this dispatch function, for add to do, for each action, the add to do, the update to do, the complete to do, and delete to do, we'll first have to make the change to the local storage so that it can persist the data. So yeah, the local storage dot set item. So here is where I'm going to make use of the, okay, so I want to read into the to-dos first, to-dos key, then I'll do json.stringify to stringify my state into the local storage. So next I would write into the state into the local storage, then also do this. I'm basically repeating the same thing that I'm returning here. I'm basically repeating the same thing. So the main objective of this is just persist the state data. Okay, and I can just use this since it's already an array. I don't need all these things. Can just return the new state. I don't need to spread it. Okay, that seems working. Okay, so next in the update to do, I would have to do the same thing, local storage. So basically what I'll do here is local storage dot set item to do's, then json.stringify. This one will be the new state. So I'll just have to copy this since I'll use this particular ones for other cases like the complete to do here. Okay, then in the delete to do, yeah, I'll just perform the same action. So let's test it out. I'll start by adding the add to do. I'll use date.now to create a random string using time, not really random, sure. Dates, oh sorry, dates.now, start by using code. Okay, pause. Okay, so what's happening here, why you're seeing all this is because I tested it out before, so there are some data already in my local storage, so I have to clean it first. Just clear it. So let's try that again. Oh, since I have to clean this, then restart. So let me see. Okay, yeah. So you see now I have just code. So let me add something else. Let me add movies. Clean my console. So I have two to-dos. So let me try and refresh and see if I'll get back the same data. So let me add something else. If I add something else, I should be able to see the previous to-do that we added to the state. So let me add teaching. So you see here, we now have 3. The code and movies didn't clear, it's still persisting. So let's check. So here, if we are to click on this, let me notice. So here you can see our to-dos is being stored in the local storage in the to-dos key, and these are the values. You see. So with this, we can make use of reactive variables and persist it without losing data. Okay. So the next setup that I'm going to do would be in this index file. So basically what I'm going to do would be I need to set up the Apollo client, because that's what we're going to use to make your GraphQL queries. And with the GraphQL queries using the reactive variables, anytime there's a change made to the reactive variables, the queries would update. So in a situation whereby a component is making a request using the Apollo client in GraphQL, and after getting a list of the current to-dos, and let's say you then deleted to-do, or you changed one of the to-do states to complete, then the changing of the state would actually trigger the Apollo client in that component. So there'll be a fresh update of the state there. So first of all, I have to import the required components from the Apollo clients. I would have to use, okay, do this first. So I'll need a memory cache. I would also need the Apollo client, and I'll need the Apollo provider. Yep. Okay. So next is I'll set up my client, custom client equals new Apollo client. Then here I would, so when creating this, you have to instantiate this cache with the in-memory cache that I imported from Apollo client. In-memory cache. Then this memory cache, I'm going to define the type policy. So what this type policy field does is that it defines how a particular field is being read and the data that you obtain from it. So since I don't want to define my type policy here, so let me just leave it like this. Yeah. Then next, I would have to wrap this with the Apollo provider so that I can communicate to the Apollo client. Apollo provider client. Okay. So next I would create my type policy file. Type policies.js. Okay. So in my type policies.js, what I'm going to do here is that I would have to import from this reducer file. You can remember we exported it, export const to-dos equals makefile. So we exported this state, this reactive variable state. So I will have to import it in the type policies here, because I'll make use of it in the field. in the query field rather. So to do from reducer. Okay, so let's type policies equals query. So I'm trying to define what would happen in the under the query field. And then the query field, it has a field property, and then so the field I'd create here for my to-dos state is the to-dos field. Then under the to-dos field, I have to define a read object, a read function here. So what this read function does is that it defines, just as its name implies, read, it defines what happens, the kind of data that you obtain when you try to read from this field. So to-dos, I want to return to-dos, return to-dos. Okay, so that is it. Okay, I'm seeing something here saying React DOM, no such file or directory. Okay, let me look into that. Okay, seems I have to run npm install React DOM. I'm not really sure of the reason here why my React DOM file is missing. Let me see. Okay, there's an error here as well. This should be a new case constructor, so I have to replace this. Next, let me just run npm install React DOM. Okay, sorry. Let me open this first. npm install React DOM. This will take some time. Okay, it has completed. Let me see. I'm still seeing the same error. I think I have to restart myself, but before that, let me export this. So this type policy just creates the configuration for the query field, as you can see here. So I'd have to export default policies and import it here. Let me just import it. Import type policies. So part of ESA standard, I don't need to instantiate set the value here, so it is set automatically using this as a reference. So let me restart my server. Okay, so I think it was just to restart the server, not actually installing React DOM. So looking at this now, I've set up my Apollo client. I've set the provider. So let me see. I have an extension here, the Apollo client developers tool. So you need to install this as an extension in your Chrome browser if you want to make use of the dev tools interact with your GraphQL, your local GraphQL. So Apollo here. Then anyway, this isn't necessary to when using this. But that is just a best practice. Anytime you're making a request locally, you need to attach this so that your GraphQL query can identify that it's not sending data across your network. I also need to set this to load from cache. So if I run this, you see, oh, Let me see. It's not showing anything. Let me see. That is here. Type policies. To do's. Okay. Seems I'll need to restart this again. It's not still loading. Okay, let me check my code. Okay, I didn't add something. This should be filled. It's not filled. Let me see. This isn't displaying well. Set this. Yeah. So here you go. So anytime you make this query in your React component, it returns the list of to-dos in your state, as you can see. So that is it, guys, for this section. Please do like and subscribe to this channel if you find this quite useful, and the next video we'll get into building the UI and wrap it up.